Welcome to You, But More Powerful. I'm your host, Rhiannon, and this is your go-to podcast for raw and expansive messages from health, fitness, business, and mindset, and as always, with a little bit of fun sprinkled in. My purpose is to help you step into your most powerful self and build your dream life. You'll gain clarity, connection, and confidence with a whole lot of practical skills along the way. I know you're in exactly the right place to level up, build the body, mindset, and life you absolutely love and thrive in. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode on the podcast. And today I have special guest, long-term client of mine, Tiana. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Anytime. It's absolutely my pleasure. I have been looking forward to this conversation for a really, really long time. But we've been working together for a really, really long time. I don't even know how long it's been. But there has been so much from the very beginning to the middle to where we're at now and, you know, what's coming for the future. And I really would love to sort of unpack that with you today.
Yeah, no, it's going to be good.
Perfect. So before we get into all the, bits and pieces, I'd like to just have a bit of a chill conversation. And how was your training session before this? I know you trained, you had your meal.
And I thought I'd get my jitters out. I can't do my training, get my jitters out, have a good meal, and then I thought sit down and I'll be ready to just record the podcast.
I love it. I love it. Is that how, like, thinking back to before we ever first started, is that how you think you would have shown up to something like this? Like,
No, never. Like I never would have turned to training as like a sense of relaxation in a way, as crazy as it sounds. For me, that would have been like just a headache in itself, but I love training. So it's my go-to like stress relief or just something I do beforehand to get my, like I said, my jitters out.
I love it. And I talk about this a lot, and knowing that obviously, training is a stressor to our body, but as you know, that there is, especially when we're eating at maintenance, there's a lot more food volume and
Yeah.
a lot more calories coming in for that energy, but it also brings that sense of calm where you're in that moment. There's nothing else that you can focus on. Like, you have to focus on lifting this weight from point A to point B, breathing correctly and being so present. And people think I'm a bit nuts when I tell them that it's like a meditation, but that's how I
Yeah.
feel.
No, me too. I even have a little notification setting on my phone where I have it do not disturb, and it's called for training sessions. And I put that on when I train, and no phone calls, no texts can come through. And it's just like 45 minutes to 60 minutes all by myself. And I love it.
That's the best. It is. It's like that little commitment to yourself, like booking in that time. No one can contact me. I can park it and pick it
Yeah,
up later.
yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So I really want to rewind. And honestly, I feel like we'd be on this episode for probably like 6 hours. We probably could, but I'm going to try and keep to the point. And I, again, really love having these conversations. I know that you've benefited from hearing others similar kind of conversations here before. And I'd love for others to be able to be inspired. You inspire me. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
I really mean that though. Like, just, the way that you have shifted over the time and the way that you operate and hold yourself now. And I'm a big believer. I always get goosebumps when I talk about it, is that when you're on your best path for you, whether that is the way that I operate in my life or someone else operating in their life, that's the biggest piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. If you're living a truly aligned, fulfilling, and you're not out there harming anyone, like that, like, I don't know how to explain it into words, but like that's the meaning of life. I feel it's a bit
I
deep, but
completely agree. Like I think in most of my check-ins, I'll say something like, "When I look my best, I feel my best, and when I feel my best, I do my best." And it's just the cycle of life in a way.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh, there's so much we're going to chat about, because it goes deeper than, like that surface level, like looking. It's like the way that we lift, look,
Yeah.
feel, move, all of those things intertwined and everything in between. So I guess if we rewind to the very beginning, again, big on the vibe. And I remember our first conversation. Like, we
Yeah.
were, yeah, having a chat around the training that you had done before, and obviously little bits, I think it was more of like a CrossFit style type
Yeah.
workout.
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember it as well. It was a good, yeah, just a different aspect of training and diving into a whole new world in a way.
Yeah. And at that point in time, I believe you were training either at a gym, or you'd left the gym and you were going to be looking at like signing up at a new gym. I remember there was like a 10-week block that we worked with at home training?
Yeah, I so I had a personal trainer, and we were just at her house, just
Hmm.
myself and her in her home gym.
That's
And
right.
then yeah, things came and I wasn't really too happy with a few things. So then I found and yeah, haven't looked back.
I love it. Well, I haven't looked back either, and I hope we just keep riding off into the
Yeah,
sunset.
exactly.
Oh dear. But no, I do. I remember having that conversation and just, again, a credit to yourself in the way that you operate even back then before you knew. It was just so curious and so inquisitive, and I want to learn more about this, and I want to learn what muscles I'm using when I'm doing certain exercises, and those kind of conversations. And come a long way since that time. I believe, well, actually, I'm going to jump in between. How, like, since that very beginning, how far are we down in both measurements? Like, let's talk dress sizes and
Oh,
scale roughly.
okay. So when I started, so I've been doing I don't know, like I said in one of our meetings not long ago, I hate the word journey. It's
Yeah.
just a whole lifestyle change for me. So when I started be 2 years ago, I was close to maybe a size 16, and now I'm between a size 6 to 8. So that's a massive shift, like within 2 years. Yeah. So I don't know exact centimeters. I think I was looking at the other day. Yeah, I can't remember exact, but yeah, it has been a huge shift, like massive.
Yeah, like I'm honestly gobsmacked and blown away. Like I did put you on the spot with the numbers, and I'm
Yeah,
sure like we don't, again, like it's pretty much a bit of a show of how we operate. It's not so
yeah,
hyper focused on all this sort of stuff. And maybe I can chuck a little bit in the show notes or pop up something on Instagram if people want to
yeah,
go and
yeah,
refer to it there. But size 16 through to a 6 to 8, like that's incredible.
yeah,
That's such a shift. Um, and I really want to emphasize the 2 year component. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
It was a hard
yes,
2 years.
yeah, yeah. But like, and it's like now, oh, I feel like I'm gonna, keep going, but it's now the conversations that we're having around like growing muscle and
Yeah,
growth and really shifting gears and, looking at like changing things in that opposite direction. But it's all of that hard work, like all of those, foundational blocks that you learn along the way and the shifts and the changes and going through different phases, like whether it be fat loss, whether it be maintenance, whether it be discussions around growth phases that we've had in the past, and all the work that you've also done outside of the gym, like how this has flown, all like kind of just into other areas. Do you want to talk about that actually a little bit, like where the structures and all that kind of stuff with your training and how you've kind of implemented that into your study and the way that you conduct yourself outside of the gym?
yeah. So I was originally going to a gym when I started working with yourself,
Hmm.
and then I realized that it was just a little bit too much on my plate because I'm a full-time nursing student, and anyone who is a nursing student will get my pain there that it's a busy degree and you never stop. So yeah, it just became more optimal that I started up a little gym here in my home. It was just a few dumbbells to start with, but now I've got a full set of dumbbells, like a barbell, benches, treadmill, and I yeah, train completely from home and I love it, and that's how it fits in with my schedule. And my training times definitely vary according to my year. So I'm currently on holidays, so I can train whenever I like in the day. But when I'm on uni, I'm up at 4 a.m. training, walking before I start my day. And that's just because I love starting my day with a training session. It makes me feel better. And like I said before, when I do my best, I feel my best, or when I feel my best, I do my best, and vice versa.
Yeah, no, I love that saying, but amazing. Like honestly, the way that you're structuring yourself and just thinking back to how that would have been, 2 years ago, maybe a completely different story, and just how far you've grown along the way. And I really want to highlight is that, we, and again, I'm myself included, and we talk about this a lot within the team, is that it's not so much about the hustle culture, and it's not like, go hard or go home. It's like, yes, we want to work hard and we want to train hard and we want to do all these things, but we also want to make sure that we're managing the rest and the recovery component and the nutritional component, and taking deload weeks if and when needed, and
Yeah.
understanding that getting up at this period of time, what that requires and what kind of self-discipline it will means to go to bed at this particular time, and having those structures. I have been able to obviously be so blessed to be able to see it, but from that outside looking in, see the shifts in the way that your weekends seem to be now in comparison to when there maybe wasn't as many structures in place,
Yeah.
and just the positive kind of, I guess, trajectory that that's gone on. And do you feel that same way in terms of like more structure has given you more flexibility on your
Oh,
weekends?
definitely. Like before we were talking about that, I definitely eat more of an 80-20, cycle. So through my week, it's where I'm really structured, it's where I get all my training sessions done. It's not super strict with my eating, but it's generally where I, do my best and I track. And then the weekends I leave for a bit more free time and spending time with my partner or having time for myself. I don't necessarily train on the weekends, just primarily to have it free and, let myself go with the flow. But yeah, keeping myself a structure and a bedtime and a wake up time has just, yeah, given me more time in a sense.
Yeah, I love that. Like, and again, I haven't paid you to say this. Like, you're saying this on your own. And again, like I think back to myself, 5, 6 years ago, if I heard someone say that, I would almost think, how can that be possible? Like, being more strict, or not strict isn't the right word, but more structured and regimented throughout the week. And my partner was, and I remember thinking like, oh, like that doesn't seem as flexible as I want to operate in my life. And the funniest thing is it's like a full, 360, and I'm out the other side going, I operate the best when I have these certain structures, and yes, some freedom and flexibility with, what those things look like, whether it be, eating out or macro targets or training or whatever it is, depending on the phase that I'm in, but just more of that flexibility on those times that I do, want it and sort of need it as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess if we go back to sort of like the training component and having a look at that, as I think it's something that I have conversations a lot with anyone new that I start working with. They feel, super self-conscious of getting into the gym and unsure of the movements that they're doing and if they're performing them right. And they're wanting to lift weights and, get stronger and have those changes in their physique and all of these things that you've actually accomplished and achieved along the way. How would you say that, uh, in the beginning, how you sort of overcame that fear of like, what are other people going to think when you were recording yourself or when you were getting into the gym?
I think for myself, I just had to remind myself of why I was doing it. And that at the end of the day, I walk into this gym or into this area for myself, and I'm going to leave for myself. And
Yeah.
if I'm worried about somebody watching me feel myself doing RDLs, for an example, and I don't do them, that's on me. And then I'm not going to get the benefit of it. But, you can't really let somebody's thoughts stop you, because then you're going to go home and you might take your progress photos or you take your measurements and you go, oh, damn, if only I, did this or did that, then I would be where I want to be. You kind of stopping yourself from getting your goals or achieving your goals if you're so worried about what everybody else is thinking.
It's so true. It's kind of like, I say it a lot, but I might get the fuck out of your own way, for lack of better words.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
Yeah.
love it. And I think, again, it's one of those things where I know, myself at different periods of time where I thought, oh, like I won't record because like there's other people. And this obviously, many years ago. And then, looking now, I'm like walking around or, talking to the phone or doing these things. And you build that confidence over time. But I think the big key piece is like how you framed that there. And I would love for, everyone to sort of know that is that you were focusing on you. You know what I mean? You were focusing on your processes to get your outcome, not so much focusing on the outcome. You're focusing on, okay, like what can I do? So if I know if I show up for my training sessions and I give it my all and I record it and I have my coach review feedback and I also have a look at that and I can improve. And then you've ticked, all the boxes that you can tick that put you in alignment with your goals, your values, and to get the outcome that you want. You know what I mean? But rather than focusing on like, okay, I just want this, like this is what I want, focusing on all the things that you have to do along the way.
Exactly. And if you're doing the exercise and you're filming yourself and you're worrying about what everyone else is thinking, you're probably not even doing the exercise properly in the moment, because your mind is on everybody else rather than yourself.
So it's so true. It's like blocking the meditation that we spoke about before. Like
Yeah,
you've got to be in the zone.
exactly. Exactly.
I love it. And I think like just for anyone else listening to this is, at the end of the day, like people are going to be looking regardless. You know what I mean? Like it's human nature just to like look at the person as you're walking in. Maybe they're walking into the gym, maybe you're going to the bathroom and you're in that area. They're not necessarily staring at you. They may or may not be. But I think it's really important, like an important lesson for anyone everywhere, not just in the gym, is that we can only control our actions. So our thoughts, our actions, the way that we talk, the things that we do, we can't actually control other people. So if we focus on, getting ourselves in the zone and putting ourselves in the best position to, put on muscle mass and drive the particular goals that we want to achieve, that's going to get us there much quicker than focusing on what everyone else is doing.
Exactly. That's right.
I love it. So in the beginning, I guess, and it might be a little hard to think about now, but before we'd sort of, had worked together, had you had much experience with, setting goals or value-based goal setting?
No, I was a classic I'll start Monday girl.
Yeah.
And it was always the Monday, and you might follow through on the Tuesday. And then come Wednesday, I was like, oh, never mind. I'll just start next Monday. And that was how I set my goals in quotation marks. There was no such thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, now it's just looking forward and constantly setting little goals and big goals. And yeah, it's just endless now.
Yeah. And how would you say that you felt the very first time you did maybe one of the goal setting workshops that I've run?
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. It's really good because whenever I have a new training program, I always set mini goals in there. And every time I do my training session, I think, oh, can I try and push a little bit towards this goal, or even just long-term goals? Like one of the goals that we've set together is for myself to set a long-term goal, because I am a perfectionist and I get worried that if I don't tick the goal off exactly how I set it, then it wasn't worth it at all. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's my big goal at the moment, to set big goals.
I love it. And honestly, like it's a credit to you, but people listening, it's a real thing. It's like, you're not wanting to, people are going to totally understand and resonate with yourself, because these are conversations that I'm having within the team or within DMs or anything like that, that people are afraid to set that goal because, they are fearing that failure or fear of falling short. So what advice would you give to yourself to overcome that?
Oh, probably that. Actually, a good example is I had something pretty big on yesterday. I had a panel interview for a nursing partnership. And I said to myself in the car, oh, I don't want to go in. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm too scared. And then I said to myself, you can't be open to opportunities if you're not willing to take the risk. Like, I won't get this partnership at all if I don't go and take this risk. So if you don't set the long-term goal and at least give it a crack, then you're definitely not going to have it. And when I tell myself that, I think, oh, well, then I'm, yeah, zero chance of having what I wish. But at least if I try, I've got at least 50-50 chance of getting it.
That I love that. That's so true. You got to throw your hat in the ring. If you're not in there, you it's like when people say they're going to win lotto and they never buy a lotto ticket. Like
It's a classic.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that myself. Like the
Yes,
amount
me
of times
too.
I'm like, oh, I'm going to win lotto one day, and I'm like, cannot remember the last lotto ticket I bought.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh dear. Awesome. So I guess like we've intertwined a lot around like training and obviously like mindset in there too. I guess continuing on that sort of training path and your journey along the way. I know we're using the word journey again.
Yeah.
But really shifting from and I wanted to highlight this because I think it's something you should definitely be so proud of, is that when you made that decision to shift from training in a gym. So, we went from not being in the gym, training from home, having that courage and confidence, to being in the gym, then recording in the gym and building on that, and then actually making that change. I know that that was a bit of a, like, I guess the word's tumultuous time in your life. There's a lot of things
Yeah.
going on, and a lot of variables, that were maybe sometimes quite outside of your control. And there was a lot going on. And so instead of, just shying away from like, oh, I'm not going to do anything and falling back into that all or nothing, it really moved into, okay, how can I make this the most optimal for me? And, you highlighted that being able to train from home, is still working towards the results that you want to achieve, but being able to do this, cutting out that time to and from the gym, was actually going to be better suited for you. And I think that's a big credit for you to have that recognition and that awareness and make those changes. How did you come to that conclusion?
Yes, I remember being at the gym one morning, and all that was on my mind was what I had to get done for the rest of the day. I had to watch my lectures, do my assignments, and yeah, all the rest of the uni student life. And I wasn't present at the gym in that moment. And that's when I kind of knew that I can't keep going on like this, because yeah, I'm not going to achieve anything in this sense, neither with my academic, neither with my goals that I've been setting with my training. And then, nutrition might even start to fall behind with everything, with all the stress that was piling on me. And I remember sending you a message saying that I think I'm going to stop training. Like, I think I'll just, stop working together. It's probably not working for me at all. I'm going to take a break of training, nutrition altogether. And we had a, quick Zoom meeting and basically formed a new plan for me to start training from home. And that in itself was scary because, you don't have as much access to equipment as you do in the gym. But I did have the sense of security that I'm home, I'm in my own space. And yeah, that in itself was comforting, but it was a scary shift. And now I love it. I've built more in my gym. Like every time I make a new progress, I will buy myself a new piece of gym equipment. Like I
Yeah.
even said to my partner the other day, he said, "Oh, what do you want for Christmas?" And I said, "Oh, honestly, buy me dumbbells and I'll be yours forever."
I
And
love it.
yeah, that's, all I want in life is dumbbells and barbells. And yep, and I'm here for it. So yeah,
We
it
are
was
a
a
match
big,
made in heaven.
it was a big shift. And yeah, I love it though. I wouldn't change it, but I know that I can in the future if I want to. That
Yeah.
there are always going to be gyms out there if I ever want to join a gym. But for now, it just doesn't suit me and my lifestyle. I love being at home.
Yeah. No, I think I love that you shared that, and thank you. And it was so many layers and so many pieces. And I think I want to just explain and paint that picture. Obviously, you and I know what equipment you have and the conversations that we've had. But for those listening, it's like the conversation was these are the goals, and the we don't have set inspo pictures. We're all about being the best version of ourselves. But obviously, for us to get on the same page, we'll have a little bit of a reference and be like this kind of physique or these kind of changes or this kind of stuff that we want to discuss. So, to make sure that they're on the same page. And I remember the discussion was really much around like, unless I was, back into that sort of perfectionist side of things, unless I was able to be in the gym because like that's where, those types of physiques occur, like quotation marks I'm using.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, I've got to be there. Otherwise, what's the point in even trying? And then, really having that conversation, that open conversation of like, hey, yes, if you're just training from home with absolute bare minimum and you have no intention of maybe, increasing that over time, then in the long run, and if we're playing the long game, that those goals may not be achievable, based on what we have access to. Obviously, for an acute period of time, we all went through lockdowns. Were we working together during the
No,
lockdown?
we had probably just come out of the whole COVID lockdown period when we started.
Yeah, okay. Because I remember having that conversation, being like, we actually, within the team, we made a lot of amazing progress during lockdown, obviously
Yeah.
with minimal equipment. So, yes, it was doable. Is it most optimal? That's, a bit of a topic and discussion for another time. But, we had that conversation of like, okay, well, if this was to be the case, these are the hypotheticals, and are you open to, increasing your equipment from home, and these would be the most value for money, and just kind of discussing around that, because obviously these goals and these values were so important to you that, you didn't want to just shy away from them all completely. But
Yeah.
at that time, it didn't really feel like the whole picture fit together.
Yeah. And I think that's how I knew that it meant something to me because there was so much emotion with it. Like even on our Zoom call, I was crying, I was saying my deep, heartfelt things. And because it means something to me, because I don't want to let go of the progress that I've made and the person that I've become. And I think that's one of my biggest fears is always going backwards rather than forwards. So that's why when we kind of constructed a plan and, like you said, making it more optimal for myself and turning the dials up and down, yeah, we were able to formulate something that worked for me.
Yeah, I love it. I like, as you're saying, you were tearing up. I was like, oh, it was bringing back all the memories and all the
Yeah,
conversations that we've had. I was like, there's been so much emotion, but in a
I
good
know.
way.
I know.
Oh dear, that's yeah. But I love it. So it's really like, you are still killing the game, obviously, with your training. We'd shifted focus. I know many, many months ago, we discussed about, the potential of having, going through a growth phase. And I believe this kind of the conversation around the change to home training and all that kind of occurred
Yeah.
pretty much around that time. And then obviously, again, really reminding you that, and this is how I believe like coaches should operate, is it's not my goals and how I want to operate and what I want
Yeah.
to do. It's like, what do you want to achieve, and like, where do you want to be, and what works for you, and making that decision that at that point in time, and I think we'll discuss this kind of topic around scales in just a moment, is like that point in time, going into a growth phase with all the other external pressures and stresses at that period wasn't the, best decision, that you decided at that time that it wasn't the best decision, for you. and we had the conversations of the pros and cons. And I think ultimately reminding you that it is your decision and you can decide to do it or not. And you have that control and that power as such. Do you feel as though that really reminding you of that really helped you, make that transition and change?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think as well, naturally, I'm a people pleaser. So I will do things to make sure everybody else is happy. And I often will put my happiness at the very bottom of the pyramid. And yeah, when I am, working with you, Ree, that I'm able to put myself at the top of my own pyramid and be able to put my own goals first and what I want first. And yeah, you kind of are just my cheerleader in my pocket, telling me that, yeah, it's possible and we make plans and it's amazing to be able to do all those things. And honestly, I don't think you can, or this is my own opinion, you can't really achieve all those things if you don't have somebody there coaching you in a sense. I think that just makes the world difference.
Yeah, I I share the same value, obviously, with having coaches myself in my corner, and
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Like, is it impossible? No, but is it going to take a really, really, really long period of time, and potentially, I'm going to use that word again, motivation is going to, drop off, and you don't, you do, we do have self doubt, we do have those conversations, we do have those things, and yeah, obviously I'm, grateful that you obviously share that same value and opinion, but I am totally with you on that as well.
Yeah.
Whether it be business, whether it be, like gym, etc., all of those things, I think there's yeah, it's having that objective eye. And I think this is actually a really good segue into talking about that time of the month. And
Yes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the way that we view ourselves and the conversations. And I popped up a story the other day and I know you'd responded, and I'd
Yeah.
love for you to share a little bit about, again, like maybe, tracking your cycle and having those conversations that we've had over time. I'd love to hear your experience about that.
Yeah, so I've been on a journey with my menstrual cycle. So before I even started my fitness journey, or my health lifestyle change, when I was quite overweight for myself, I actually lost my menstrual cycle for a good, I think, 1.5 years. And that was a tough time. You don't have your menstrual cycle, and for females, you feel not like a female in a sense, like you don't feel very womanly, you don't feel intact with yourself, you're not doing what your body is meant to be doing. And then when I started my fitness journey and my health, and I got my nutrition on track, I then got my period back. And that was I almost was celebrating it. And it sounds funny, and, that I'll celebrate having my menstrual cycle, but I did. And then I got into the method of tracking, and I use the app called Flow, and I highly recommend it. Really great. And yeah, I definitely will notice a week before I'm due for my period that I look in the mirror and I think, oh my gosh, I look so ugly today, or I'm bloated and everything is agitating me. It could be someone chewing their food, and I'm like, get out. Like, this is enough. I've had enough of you.
Yeah.
And
All
it's
the
just,
boyfriends, I think, are just
it
like, yep,
is.
yep.
He just knows, like, my partner actually works away. So often my menstrual cycle will line up when he's away. So he's kind of in the safe zone. It's yeah, it works out well. But yeah, I now set little reminders in my phone, and even Flow can send you reminders that you might be feeling a little bit like this. And I say to myself, oh yes, I'm due for my menstrual cycle in 5 days. That's why I'm tired, that's why I'm extra hungry, that's why I feel like eating a bar of chocolate. That's, this is why I feel this way. And then in the peak of my cycle, when I'm probably due to ovulate, I find that I've got the most energy ever. I feel amazing. I think, oh my gosh, I look the best right now. It's just the peak period. I absolutely love that time of the month. And I think we all can agree it is the best week of our lives.
It
And
is.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in then, but like
no, no, you're fine.
it's literally science. Like, you know
It
what I
is.
mean? It blows my mind that we're not, and I actually might leave a link in the show notes. I actually have a bit of a overview of like nailing your cycle and your, training. So if any of this is kind of anyone listening and they're like, oh, I want to know a little bit more about the why, I'm going to leave that below. But if we think about it, it's like I wish we were taught about this a lot more in school. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it would
Yeah.
save us a lot of like maybe dramas and hassles, but it's also, one of those things that I guess it's part of the human experience is we learn and we, learn more about ourselves over time. But it's like during that peak ovulation period, like our skin's glowing and,
Yeah.
we're giving off those like pheromones or whatever it is, like to attract a partner, and,
Yeah.
and we're loving ourselves sick, and it's amazing. But it's just, it's so It's so crazy that like, the downward trend of those hormones into that sort of like
Yeah.
next 10-day period, it's that it is a bit of a rocky road if you aren't aware of things. I think that's a big component, is like being conscious and aware of the flow. Send you those reminders, or I also pop them in my calendar from time to time, especially at the back end of the year.
Yeah.
When I actually get my cycle, I'll go through and sorry, once it finishes, I'll go through and put predictions of when the next one.
Exactly.
Yeah, just to like be aware, because I'm going to jump
Yeah.
down people's throat, or I'm going to think I feel more
Yeah.
puffy, and we all deal with these,
Yeah.
thoughts and
It just
feelings.
gives you that pre-warning. Like I make a vow to myself to not make huge, big decisions during my menstrual cycle or before it, because that's when I am the most emotional and I can tend to make very rational decisions. And then I'll get to my peak time and I think, oh my gosh, if only I could go back to, 5 day before Tiana and tell her that she was making a big mistake. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a flashback now to a couple of like check-in responses, and
Yeah.
they do keep coming up as we're talking. But one in particular around, I think you'd put a bit of an action plan in place to actually
Yeah.
park that and revisit it the following week.
Yeah, and even my last check-in with you, I was saying I'm coming into the peak of my month and I feel this is when I feel the best, and I use it to my best capacity for my training. So I know that I can push myself a little bit harder this week and I can go for a bit of a longer walk, and I love to cook healthy, fresh meals, and I use this time to really optimize my time as a person and make myself feel amazing, because yeah, that's what you should really do. Try and use your month to your advantage.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you've said that, is because I'm big on the menstrual cycle, and myself, I've had a couple of, I've got obviously got some hormone issues, etc. And I think like not being aware of this stuff, or not trying to, optimize it and maximize it, for me, it almost feels like a waste. Like one of my, mine and Michael's actually biggest fears are like not reaching our full potential. So, day in, day out, we're striving to be better versions of ourselves, whether it be personally, in a relationship, in business, in friendships, whatever it may be. And I think like if I am out of action, 1 week of the month, and again, I've spoken about this before, it's 12 weeks of the year. That's 3 months, that's a whole quarter of the year if you're having a week long cycle, or it could even be longer, or etc. And then I think, like, how many 3 months, like that's going to lead up to years of my life, for the amount of times that we have a cycle. And for me, like blowing it up into that grand scheme of things isn't to catastrophize it whatsoever. Like obviously I do feel there was a moment where I went whoa, and I was starting to see red, but then bringing myself back down to earth and being like, okay, rather than seeing this as a negative thing, it's like, how can we optimize what we have?
Yeah.
How can we go hard when we can, and how can we forecast and plan around? I'm leading into mine now, and I've pretty front loaded my week to try and account for that, and planning those things out, I think is yeah, one of the key pieces when it comes to our
Definitely.
cycles.
Definitely. I think you can't let it stop you. It's something we've got to live with, unfortunately. So, yeah, don't let it control you. You've got to control it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I love it. So I think, obviously discussing around like body image, and the way that we view ourselves before our cycle. And I know that's something you've really grown, maybe the one or two previous check-ins, the love that you've been able to share towards yourself and have for yourself, again, like very inspirational. And I hope that you can, through the microphone, through the phone, wherever anyone's listening, watching, whatever, I hope that people can feel that, and have that for themselves. How, like, can you talk about like how this has shifted over time, because it's incredible.
Yeah, so even at the beginning of my like fitness and health journey, I would look in the mirror and still never be that 100% happy with how I looked, or I would always be throwing little criticisms at myself. It could be, I tend to hold a lot more weight in my stomach, so I'd be like, oh, why does your tummy look like that? Or, just nasty little things that you wouldn't really say to anybody else. And eventually, I think it was a few weeks ago, I looked in the mirror and I thought, why don't I see anything wrong? Why don't I Yeah, I was almost finding an error in not finding an error. And I
Yeah.
realized that I had just come full circle, and I think my body is how it is. I love it. I've worked so hard for it, and it does so much for me in return. And that's even when I was on my menstrual cycle, the last month in one of our check-ins, I was saying even though I'm bloated, I wasn't even giving myself any criticism. I was like, okay, my body's going through X, Y, and Z right now, and it's doing what it needs to do, and I'm doing what I need to do. And I love it for that. And yeah, being able to look in the mirror is just, it's like probably a big goal of mine that I always had. Because even before I started my weight loss, I would avoid mirrors at all costs. You know, even in the shopping center, I wouldn't even look up when I was washing my hands in the bathroom. Even when I'm in the change room, I would refuse. Like, no, wouldn't even look at myself. And I do even tend to find myself still not wanting to look at myself as a habit. And then I go, no, you've got to look at yourself. You know, there's only so many years that you're going to be this age and look this way. So, you know, appreciate it whilst you have it. And yeah, definitely coming full circle body image wise, it's, yeah, I wish and I hope that all women could feel like this, or anybody in the world could feel like this.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. And I had again another flashback. I feel like I'm having all these moments of like when you wore, I believe it was like a yellowish type dress and you had your arms on show. And I remember it being one of the pivotal moments of you saying like,
Yeah.
yeah, do you remember that?
I do. I do. I remember I bought with my sister actually with this one time. We went out shopping and I bought all these dresses. This was when I set goals that didn't really happen, you know, the whole I'll start Monday kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I'm not even going to buy my own size. I'm going to buy a size, I think it was a size 10, and I'm going to fit into that. That's my goal. And I never, ever, ever got to around to fitting into them. And yeah, I think it was not maybe last year I put them all on. And my partner said, oh, how did you know there was a zipper on there? And I said, no, I wasn't even aware there was zippers on this. And I had just slipped them all on. And it was amazing to be in that moment. And one of them was like a strapless, like spaghetti top or something. And I had my arms out. And for me, exposing my arms has been one of my biggest fears. I don't know why. I think maybe a few women might be able to understand where I'm coming from.
Oh,
That
definitely.
yeah, you can just feel a little bit self-conscious with them. And now I embrace it as much as I can. I love wearing my singlet tops. I, you know, get out and about because I love the muscles I've built. I love the tone look that I've got. And yeah, it's just taken time. But even before now, when my arms weren't as toned, I was still going around and wearing the spaghetti strap tops and so forth because, yeah, I knew that I was being more confident in myself and feeling better with how I looked.
I love it. It that like it is that be do have mentality. Like, yes, it's like this brings me to the whole photo shoots that running, the glow up photo shoots, I should say, running
Yeah.
a couple of times a year. The purpose behind that is like being able to celebrate exactly that, like wearing the top. We may not be at where we want to be just yet, but we're at this perfect step along the way. It's like being, really proud of the work that we've done to get where we are, even while we're working to where we want to go.
Yeah, that's right. And I definitely truly believe that for so many people, and even myself including, we always are looking at the next step and what else can we be doing better. And I think sometimes we tend to forget to just be happy in the moment we're in and appreciating where we're at. And that's something I'm really trying to focus on while setting goals, but still being so happy with where I'm at because you can't move forward if you're not happy with the piece you've already laid down.
That
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's beautifully said. It's so true. It's like we can't beat ourselves up to a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, no, no, definitely not.
Wow. Yeah. So I'd love to know, in your words as well, is like, what would you credit the change in that perspective? So those moments, if we think about those big moments where, you wore those particular dresses and you were having that confidence to do so. And then even just now, like looking in the mirror and not having to pick yourself apart and being really, really proud of what you've done, what would you credit that to?
It's going to sound really bad, but probably myself. Like,
Not
yeah,
bad at all.
100% credit to myself. And, you know, I definitely live by the whole fake it till you make it. And I can guarantee the first time I wore a top that exposed my arms, for example, you may see me and I may look confident to you, but in the inside, I'm screaming. Like I was so frightened to be doing that. And for me, the whole time I'm focusing, like, oh, can this person see this? And are they going to think I've got flabby arms? And I was doing that the whole time, but you just keep doing it a little bit by a little bit, and you just wear it and realize that yeah, I'm going to be 90 or hopefully be 90 years old one day, and I wouldn't want to look back on my life and think, my gosh, I should have wore that top. And as well, I used to work in aged care, so I've seen a lot of people at the end of their lifespan, and they do say, I wish I did this, or I wish I wasn't feeling the way I did, and I wish I ate that piece of cake, or I wish I wore that dress. And they always have the what ifs and the wishes that they didn't, complete. So I think don't leave anything on the table, don't leave any cards on the table, just go for it, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day, you've got to do it for you.
I'm like goosebumps. I'm lost for words to basically say, like, if I can add to that, is 100% it is you. And the like, what I'm hearing from that is like you continually just pushing the boundary a little bit, like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, like whether
Yeah.
you've got other systems in place and things that help you along that way, like irrespective, but it's like you are doing the work and showing up maybe before you're ready, that never
Yeah.
ready time, but continually pushing that envelope of like, this is outside of my comfort zone, but I'm going to take it on.
That's it. I think you've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all about all of the cliche sayings because they are
Yeah,
so true.
it
Everyone's always
is.
laughing like, why are you saying that? I'm like, but it's so true. Like
It is.
it
It
really is.
really is. Like I totally live by it. And yeah.
Yeah. So we've covered off a lot, obviously, like training, mindset. We probably could go down more rabbit holes along here as well. And before we sort of start to wrap things up, I'd love to chat a little bit more around the nutrition side of things and gaining some food freedom and some flexibility because, like you mentioned before, going from no menstrual cycle and not being in the gym and then getting into the gym and making all these changes along that way, there's also been a food journey, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd love for you to sort of paint a bit of a picture around the start, the beginning, and where we are at today.
Yeah. So when I first started, it was actually I started off doing light and easy, 1,200 calories a day. That was all I had. And I just tracked calories through light and easy. There was no such thing as macros with my carbs, fats, and protein. Wouldn't even know what I was talking about back then. And yeah, I was doing the 1,200 calorie deficit, which is very small amount of food. And yeah, I saw some weight drop off, and then kind of just stuck. Like I wasn't really losing any more than that. And then I stopped light and easy and I put all my weight back on. And that's when I started seeking out my personal trainer. And then I continued doing 1,200 calories right up until I started working with Ree. And that's actually one of the reasons why I shifted to a new coach was because I thought there's something that I'm missing out on. There must be something with my nutrition that I'm not getting because I can't see any further progress and I don't understand why. And I didn't really want to drop my calories because I knew that wasn't the answer. I was already so low. I just knew that my nutrition was probably my barrier at that point of time. So I started working with Ree, and she introduced me to tracking carbs, fats, and protein. And as soon as I started doing that, that's when the big shift started. And we did the reverse, was it reverse dieting? No, reverse cycle.
Reverse dieting, yeah, kind
Yeah,
of like
reverse
slowly,
dieting.
yeah, slowly
And
building up to a maintenance.
yeah, and as we slowly increased the calories, that was when my biggest body composition goals really took place. And people always find that the most like mind-blowing concept that more calories equaled weight loss. And it does, it really works. And now I was sitting at a maintenance for most of the time. We did do a little bit of a deficit because I still had some fat that I wanted to lose. But now I'm currently in maintenance and we're going into a growth phase come New Year, which is really exciting and something very new for me. I used to feel very scared of the thought, but now I've got no fear in me. Actually, I'm just so excited. I keep saying to my partner, I can't believe what the food I'm going to be able to eat. Like I can have a pizza and a garlic bread. It's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like we've undersold it just now. Like this
Yeah.
is a huge, huge moment for
Yeah.
you.
This
Yeah.
is it really is. It took a while for me to come to this point. And the last few weeks or maybe the last few months really, I've been going, oh, I'd love to be able to build this muscle. I'd love to be able to do that. And I know the only way I can do it is if I do the growth phase. So I've just got to, like I said before, I've got to take the risk for the opportunity.
100, and it's putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, trying
Yeah.
something new, but like looking back on as I say, your life or like your journey so far, it's like that every single time you've pushed yourself out of your comfort zone just that little bit further, you've followed through and you've had success, and
Yeah.
it's building those confidence, like, and it's collecting those little wins along the way that build up into that big momentum.
That's it, exactly. But yeah, definitely, probably the biggest thing I've learned is how important protein is. And I know that most people know that if you're in the fitness health industry, but that is just, yeah, it blows my mind how like how much I was under eating protein. And now it's my main focus. It's how I structure all my meals. And yeah, everything is protein for me and I love it. And yeah, even carbs, carbs is just as important as protein. I think a lot of people forget that, they don't realize it. And yeah, they go hand in hand together.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's like protein. I know I harp on about it all the time. It
Yeah.
is a bit of a running joke because that's all personal trainers seem to talk about. But when I look at it from like that, that bird's eye view, it's like proteins like in our skin and our bones,
Yeah,
like everything that's going on within
it
our
is.
bodily functions.
It's true. I was saying to one of my friends the other day that people collect, spoons or they might collect magnets. I collect tubs of protein. So if you open up my pantry, I've got at least 20 to choose from. You're all good, every flavor you can think of.
That's the best. What's
Yeah.
your go-to? Like what's your favorite protein?
I would have to say I'm a plain person. I love a good vanilla because I can just chuck it in a smoothie or I can put my greens powder with it. It's either that or like a salted caramel. But yeah, I'm definitely always going
Mm.
towards the vanilla.
I you know what? Like, I feel like sometimes vanilla is done really well. Like, I drink a
Yeah.
fair bit, like, kind of on the go. But like, it's sometimes done really, really well, sometimes done really, really poorly. But I feel
Yeah.
like when you when you find a good protein, like it's like you run with it. I've been obsessed with White Wolf's chocolate malt flavor.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually really, really nice. But yeah, I'm much more of like a chocolatey kind of flavor, but I'm gonna have to hit you up for some
Yeah.
vanilla options.
Yeah, I've got a collection.
That's so good. So if we could like sort of like thinking now over the last, however long it's been, what do you think are some of the maybe like the food rules and those kind of rigid rules that you may have had before? What are some of those that have really shifted that, you now don't see or, don't live into as such?
So for me, it was the whole no carbs, and I was so surrounded by less carbs means that I'm healthy and less carbs means I'll lose weight. And that was just, I think that's where a lot of people tend to focus their mind to. Like I
Yeah.
was the person at Grilled ordering the low carb bun, thinking it was the healthier version. But if
Yeah.
you actually compare the macros, having the traditional bun is lower in calories than the low carb bun. But each to their own, of course. But yeah, I think it was the low carb and eating just salads and only fruit and salads, healthy foods. It couldn't be ice cream, can't be chocolate, cutting out bad foods and putting everything into categories of good and bad. And
Mhm.
now I just see everything as, food. And if I want to have a bit of chocolate, I can. It just might mean that I can't have, X, Y, and Z. It just limits you a little bit, but it doesn't have to restrain you. And that's where I've learned the most. Like I'm someone that loves my sweets. Anybody that knows me knows that. And I will have a bowl of ice cream and chocolate and fruit every single day if I can. And I did throughout my whole weight loss journey. So you really, really can. You just have to, work around it. And that's where I learned the most was that you don't have to put a limit on food, that carbs are not evil. They are your friend because they give you energy. And protein is obviously the most important for me because it gives me my muscles.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I love that though. And I think like just to hammer that home is that it's not good and bad foods. And,
Yeah.
a credit to you as well. Again, opening up, asking questions, showing up to different workshops, using the educational tools and learning more along the way. Like one of the actually, to give you credit where credit's due, one of the really amazing things is there's always a question, and always a question out of curiosity of like, can I learn more about this? Or, what are your thoughts on this? And, straight up, if I
Yeah.
obviously don't know that answer, I'll, let you know and say, hey, go and source the information here, or if it's outside of my scope of practice. But I think like having that curiosity and the way that you operate in all areas, that's building you that momentum, and you're
Yeah.
gaining that knowledge, and like just like a sponge, like lapping it all up. And the way that you operate now, it's like you have that full faith and control within yourself that it is now so exciting to go into a growth phase, thinking about all the
Yeah.
extra flexibility of foods that there's going to be
It's
on top of where
exciting.
you're at already.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, you've got to use food to your advantage and you can still enjoy life because food is very important to me. I connect with people on food. I love going out for dinner, love hosting, love cooking. So I just keep it at the center of everything.
Yeah, yeah. The one last little bit I wanted to sort of chat around is the decluttering and the setting of boundaries and, whether it be Instagram, whether it be social budgets, whether it be all of those things and everything in between. I'd love to just kind of chat a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah. So I myself have set up like an energy budget. So every week I will look at what I've got on and I look at what might be having to be planned. And I kind of know my energy levels and how much energy I'm willing to put into certain items, my non negotiables, and obviously things that you can negotiate with, whether that be catching up with friends or so on, so on. And yeah, I definitely make sure I plan everything around to suit my energy levels because in the past I have definitely drained myself out and left myself at a zero battery and still going on and doing things. So now I make sure that, yeah, I definitely prioritize what's important to me over what may be important to somebody else, even though that may be selfish. It's just how you've got to be. And yeah, that's just how I structure it for myself.
Yeah. And I think just to, sort of like hammer that home of that, it's not selfish, you know what I mean, to look after ourselves.
Yeah,
And I
no, it's
think,
not.
yeah, it's something that I definitely think takes time to shift. I definitely have moments myself and I think, am I being selfish, and have that self-doubt and those questions that come in. But it's a again a cliche saying of like you can't pour from an empty cup. And it is so true. It's like we need to be able to look after ourselves. And naturally speaking, many of the women that I'm working with, like yourself included, and like me in the past, is, or still now, there's lots of things that I'm working on, but it's like going from that all or nothing approach of, that high achieving, that perfection type tendency. It's like, okay, we can still, operate, we can still live life without being, completely strict year round of know this, know that, know this. It's like we look at things through phases and we make things work for us, and we can, map things out. And obviously, we know that around this time of the year we typically stretch a little bit on our social budgets, outside of what we would any other time of the year. and
Yeah.
and it's for I guess a good cause. It's not, it's not trying to, make sure that we still need to look after ourselves during this period of time, but we may make other adjustments. And I think this is one that I really want to share, is that this is one of the best times to not be dieting. It's like
Yes.
finish the fat loss phase early enough, change to that training performance, really focus. And I know that we've had, and you've made massive, massive progress. I know I'm going on a side note here of your quads and your, abs. Like I know that we've had that there as the
Yeah.
intention. And yeah, just like working through that even more, like utilizing it as, our food as recovery and performance, and like shifting gears into that space is, yeah, it's, one of the best times to do it, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, no, with the whole energy thing, I actually saw something that I think would be beneficial to share, and it's an analogy of plastic and glass cups. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I
And it,
actually don't think so.
yeah, so in life, we may have, when you drop a plastic cup, you're going to drop and there would be no damage done to that cup. But if you drop a glass cup, it's obviously going to shatter. So we need to be wary of what's plastic and what's glass in our life. And that all depends on what's a priority to yourself. And I know what's plastic and I know what's glass in my life. And I know when I can drop the plastic, and I make it a vow to myself to never let the glass drop and to always be catching that first. And that's going to, obviously be different for everybody. And for me, that will be very different to what maybe yourself and to, yeah, everybody. So I think that's where I often will ask myself a question like, is this a plastic cup or is it a glass cup? Can I drop it or do I have to make sure I'm holding on to it? And that, yeah, I think you can really protect yourself and your energy with that analogy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I'm like, I want to,
Yeah.
that's a, put it on a poster
Yeah.
somewhere,
When I saw
please.
it, I thought of you and I thought, yeah, I think you'd like that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's like it's the dials, It's like we can't just not eat. Like our bodies need to function, but to what extent are we doing those
Yeah.
things? It's, that's the control systems that we have over. And it sounds like it's similar to that kind of,
Yeah,
I guess, analogy.
exactly.
I love that. I honestly, I could keep talking to you all
Yeah.
day, every day. And also, just a side note, I feel like we need to share it on the podcast. It's been however long, I don't even know now. It's coming up to
Yeah, I think we'll be going on 18 months, something crazy like that. It's too
insane.
long of a time now, like to not know each other, like personally, like in person.
100%. And it's always like such a pinch me moment, but I'm like, I'm counting down the days. You're on the other side of the
Yeah,
country and you're going to be on this side, and we're going to actually get to
I
physically
know.
meet in person.
It seems surreal, but I have to pinch myself in the moment that I'm actually meeting you for the first time because I feel as though I've known you for years and years.
Yeah. Well, the feeling is mutual.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people you just click in life and energies match. And I feel that we've got that.
Yeah, no, I love it. Honestly, it like warms my heart. I think I'm so excited for that moment. And obviously, I totally agree. The vibes are on. And if the vibes are off, the vibes are off, but the vibes are
Yeah.
on in this situation, which is
That's
so
it.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap up, I know I've said this a couple of times, but the one last piece of advice. So I'm gonna, we're gonna finish off with this. But I'd love to know, like, either advice that you would give to anyone else that is experiencing any of the challenges or the adversities that you've faced. Like, what is your piece of advice, or giving yourself younger version of you, what piece of advice would you give them in regards to how to live their life?
I think it's a bit of tough love, but you've got to know it's not easy and it's never going to be easy. The road is tough, but it's definitely possible. You just have to set the why, and why is it important to you? And you've kind of got to let everybody else's opinions drift away, because what they think about you is none of your business. And you just got to keep going for you. And I saw something on Instagram and I really like it, and I've kept it in my phone, and I always look back at it whenever I'm in a bit of a tough time. And it says, at the top of each mountain is the bottom of the next. So you've got to keep climbing.
Yes, I love that. That's such a
Yeah.
honestly a beautiful message.
Yeah. It kind of just sums it all up, that, yeah, we just got to keep going, and the possibilities in front of you are endless. And yeah, like I always tell myself, other people's opinions are really none of my business.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep going for me.
That's such a big one. Honestly, it has been like such my pleasure to have you on here. I've had so
Oh,
much fun
thank
having
you.
this combo. And
Yes.
I definitely think we should look at something, in a few months' time, after we've dipped our toes into the growth phase, and have a look and
Yeah.
have a whole new conversation. But obviously until then, we'll wrap this podcast episode up, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the You But More Powerful podcast. If you're determined to continue to expand and grow and reach heights you never thought were possible, you'll want to make sure you're subscribed so you'll never miss out on a single episode. If you loved today's, I would absolutely love your feedback, and to see you tag at You But More Powerful _podcast on Instagram. See you guys in the next episode.